Welcome to the Sellernomics podcast. In today's special episode, we are going to share some great tools and software available to Amazon sellers. Special thanks to our sponsor, GETIDA. Did you know you can get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at getida.com/Sellernomics? Now it is time to show us what you got with your host, Rob Stanley.
Hey everyone, Rob Stanley here with my amazing host, Lisa Kinski, and we are having another great Show Us What You Got episode. And today, if you haven't seen the announcement, we got a really cool one from Elizabeth Greene of Junglr. She's going to be talking about account management philosophy. This could be a pretty interesting one, Lisa. What do you think?
I think so too. We just clicked through her slides really quickly to be sure everything was sized up right for the live stream. And it looks like it's going to be a really engaging one. I saw a couple really cute use of memes in there. So I'm really excited. This one's going to be fun.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and bring Elizabeth into the show. Hey, Elizabeth, how are you?
Hey.
Good to see you. So I have to just say real quick, Elizabeth is one of those few people I trust in the PPC world. Absolutely knows her stuff. Yes. And there's only a handful, let me tell you, or less. So it's absolutely amazing to have you on. And of course, I've had you on before, but we wanted to get you in and have you do like a really cool demo and kind of show some tips and tricks and things that you've been working on and what Junglr does. And we'll be talking about that for sure. So real quick, be sure to hit that like and that thumbs up in the corner, whatever platform you're on. And of course, we're always welcome to bring questions, put them in the comment section. And I did just get a new mic if you haven't noticed. So let me know in the comment section if it sounds good. And let's get over to the demo. It's time to show us what you got, Elizabeth.
Yeah, definitely. I'm super stoked for this one because it's always a little bit hard when you're a service agency to like demo, because it's great if you have a tool. But actually the presentation I'm going to be going over today is actually a training internally. It's a required training for all new team members inside of Junglr. And so super stoked to get into this one. And the reason why we go over like this particular training, kind of like the first thing, is we definitely hire people with prior like Amazon PPC knowledge. But that being said, there's always like different philosophies or ways to approach things. And this is kind of like, hopefully like short and sweet and to the point. These are the things that really matter. So if you wanted to kind of get a demo, our philosophies and how we would approach Amazon advertising or how we structure it, this is going to give you a really good basis for this. And if you're managing your own advertising, you're definitely going to walk away with some good things. So fun fact, I can't see a clock. So if you need to rush me along, let me know.
You're all set to go. Take your time. And yeah, we got it up. So this is actually something you use in-house for training is what you're saying. Oh, this is cool. Then this is kind of like an exclusive look.
Inside
it really is. So, I mean, I have an
cool
internal training on this. I don't think I've shared this publicly. There's been a few select friends I might have passed it along to, but yeah.
Exclusive. We got an exclusive, Lisa. All right. Well, go ahead. Show us what you got.
Awesome. Cool. So this is my thesis on everything. Is there's not one clear way to do things. There's always pros and cons. So in Amazon advertising, there's more than one method. And so we think it's important to kind of weigh the pros and cons and select the approach with the biggest upside. So in this presentation, you're going to get a lot of like this or that, and then explaining the pros of the this and that, and then saying, okay, this is what we use and here's our rationale. So if you wanted a really good understanding of like how the kind of ecosystem works, this is going to give you like a really good crash course, actually. So I'm super stoked to hear the feedback and what people can get out of this. So these are the main things we're going to be covering: is campaign structure, product grouping, meaning product grouping inside of your campaigns or ad groups. We're going to go over match type usage, negative keywords, ad type usage, so which ad type should you be using, and then a very cursory look at bid adjustments. Like, it's not a deep dive on some of the more technical things, but it definitely is going to give you a really good overview and also a really great way to like evaluate strategies that you hear along the way. Because as you know, like Amazon advertising, you're going to hear 20 different strategies. So this is going to give you context for probably most of the strategies. So hopping right into the first one, campaign structure. So kind of basics of organization. When you're going to like set up your campaigns, there's a couple different ways you can do this. One is you can do one campaign, one ad group. And then the second one is you can do one campaign and multiple ad groups. So again, pros and cons to all of these. So what I want to give you is context for all of this. So let's go over pros. And this is, again, this is in the organization structure. So the pros with one campaign, one ad group is going to be, you're going to get better control. And also a huge one for me as somebody who like has a whole bunch of different accounts and then, you know, like probably thousands of campaigns within each of these accounts to assess, is it's actually easier to see true performance at scale. So context on that is like if you have multiple ad groups contained within a singular campaign, like all of those ad groups, you're going to see the averages at the campaign level. So it's very possible, and I honestly see this all the time, where you have like one ad group that's running at 100% ACoS and the other one's running at say 20% ACoS, and maybe that average works out to like 25%, which is within your margin. So you constantly just kind of pass over that campaign. You're like, oh, everything's good. And then when you dig down into it one day, you're like, oh, no, everything's not great. So if you're just looking at things at a cursory level, it's much easier to see that true performance, again, at scale. So if you just scan through everything, you're like, oh, okay, I know exactly what's going on within this particular campaign. Now the cons, because you're always going to have a trade-off for these things. So the cons is it does make for lots of campaigns. And if you're dealing with very limited budgets, it can be trickier to limit ad spend. Now, I would actually say that this is not the worst con as far as limiting ad spend, because there's some things that are set at the campaign level, which filter down into all the ad groups. One huge one is ad budgets. So that kind of allows you to easier scale like very particular things. Because if you can imagine, if you're setting one campaign budget and that's only got one ad group, then you're just scaling that one ad group versus having to scale everything. But that also means that if you had, say, only $20 a day and you have two campaigns, you would have to go in and like adjust those campaign budgets. So that's the trade-off. One of those is worse than the other. And then on the other side, the pros, it's easier to limit ad spend. Because let's be honest, if you had one like ginormous conglomerate campaign, you could just say, hey, I only want to spend $50 a day. And you know that that's going to be the limit because you've set it up at campaign level and it filters down into everything. Now the cons, and I would argue a really big con, is you would have less control that way, meaning you wouldn't know, or you wouldn't be able to influence where that budget got distributed in your ad groups versus, you know, kind of like this structure over here. You definitely can influence where that budget is getting distributed. So less control. And then the other huge one, it can be near impossible to scale. And then true performance can be masked, which I kind of talked about when it's easier to see true performance. Sometimes you get those things that are kind of hidden down in your account. And then when I say near impossible to scale, scaling in Amazon advertising, for the most part, if you say I need to scale this campaign, I need to scale this keyword, that's adding a higher bid or adding a higher budget. And as we kind of talked about when it came to trickier to limit ad spend, there is a con to that, meaning if I increase this campaign budget, the increase is going to go to both of these ad groups. And if one ad group is running at 20% and then the other one's running at 100%, I may only want to increase the budget for the 20%, but I don't have that control over where my budget gets distributed. So if you've been hearing me talk about the pros and cons, you probably gathered that we really like to use the one campaign, one ad group system. So that's how we structure it. And again, this is like internal training. So we're often talking to account managers who maybe are used to using multiple ad groups. So that's kind of why I'm explaining it in this structure, is because we're dealing with people who like kind of understand the system. They have their way of doing it. And I'm like, hey, look, this is the pros, this is the cons. We get that there's some pros this way, but we feel that this is the best way long-term to work with things. So we're just going to do one campaign, one ad group. So that is the first structure. And then the second structure, and this is one that has come in handy more times than I can tell you. There are so many times where Amazon has given me a recommendation or a client sends me a screenshot of something and I can absolutely give context and clarity to what's going on in that particular campaign or with that particular strategy without even having to go into the account and check and see what campaign they were talking about. So if you use a clean naming structure, honestly, it saves so much time, even though it seems like, it's more of a management thing. Like, it doesn't actually matter to what keyword you're advertising on, but it will give you context when it comes to optimizations, when it comes to diagnosing things, and then also be able to allow you to, again, gain context off of a simple screenshot. So this is the naming structure we use. I'm not saying that you can get away with maybe condensing this or making it a different structure, a different order. This is what we use. And so we have our kind of explaining what these are. So we have the product identifier, we have the type, we have strategy, we have keyword, we have bidding, we have adjustments, or we have the date it was launched, and the fact that we launched it. We do put a tag on there. If you have multiple team members working in your account, it might be helpful for you to say, have everyone just have like a little initial tag, and then like, oh, this person launched this or this person launched this. Things like that can add, again, a lot of clarity. So if you're like, wait, why are you running this? You know who to go back to talk to. So again, product identifier, this is what product we are advertising. Now, some people will use the ASIN. For us, we assign a product identifier. We oftentimes maybe will add an additional thing, put in the ASIN. I do recognize that this makes for very long campaign names. That being said, I think the trade-off of getting clarity is very helpful. Then we add what ad types, so like SP, SB, SD, sponsored products, sponsored display, sponsored brands. Strategy we are running, type also includes the match type. So are we using exact, phrase, broad, etc.? What strategy are we running? So this is basically like, is this launching? Is this, maybe our low bids? Are we doing like a special high top of search, focus, like those kind of things add clarity again to what we're doing. So if we're running a ranking campaign and we've specified ranking in the campaign name, and then we go into the account, we say, oh, there's higher ACoS on this campaign. Well, normally without any context, I would say higher ACoS, that's a problem. But if we've designated that, hey, this is our ranking strategy, well, we expect a little bit higher ACoS. And so it's not something that we really need to go and like really aggressively troubleshoot. So again, adding context. On keywords, where did we find these keywords? It's super important. Like, did we find them through data in the account through a search term report, or is this completely new keyword research we did? One of those we have data to base things off of, one of them we don't. And so that was definitely going to play into our strategy. And then bidding. So for sponsored products, what bidding strategy are we running? I mean, that changes how the account or the campaign can perform. So that's important. Do we have any adjustments? So placement percentages on the account. If we have placements percentages set in the campaign, again, that affects how the campaign can perform. So that's something we might want to know. Launch date actually is really helpful. It is available inside of Campaign Manager, but you can't actually see when a product was launched. If you're like inside of the campaign, you miss out on that information. Or yes, launch dates I think are sometimes available in certain reports, but in other reports you won't see it. So when you start digging into spreadsheets, having when we launched it is really, really helpful. Was this launched 30 days ago, or was this only launched 2 days ago? Again, that adds context. And then again, I went over like who launched it. So for us, it might be a company. For you, you might want to have different initials for your VA. So this would be a naming example, right? So you have metal cup. It's an identifier. We use things that are short yet logical that help explain like what products are contained within this campaign. SPE tells me this is a sponsored product exact match. Ranking tells me this is a ranking campaign. H10 is the tag we use for we found these using Helium 10. FB fixed bids. Top of search, we have top of search placement percentages set in this account. We know when we launched it, and we know that we were the ones who launched it. And so for context, I went over like through a screenshot, I determined something was not a great idea. So Amazon actually gave us sometimes they'll give you bidding suggestions. One of the suggestions that was given was, hey, add this negative exact match to this campaign. I had no other context other than negative exact match keyword and campaign name. They gave me no other reasoning. And I saw SPE ranking. And I'm like, okay, so they want me to add a negative keyword to an exact match campaign, which just effectively pauses the thing. So I was like, nope, I can completely disregard that, only by having a good campaign naming structure and then understanding that the suggestions didn't make sense. So that's kind of why it's important.
That is.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Lisa.
I was just gonna say, just that screen where you show kind of how you've created that naming convention.
Yeah.
Is
go back
like,
one screen.
Yeah, let's go back one or two.
That one or that one?
This one. We're obviously going to continue your presentation, but we could cut it off right here. And this is enough to save a store owner so much time and money and frustration. And I know what you mean about like setting up naming conventions can feel so tedious and almost administrative, but I, a very type A person, this makes me so happy. And I think that it's something that should be implemented across the entire organization, even if it's just finding your social media resources, like having everything named correctly for what works for your business like invaluable. And yes, it can be hard to get everybody on board, but once you enact it, especially if you start early, it becomes such a habit that it saves so much time. A question that I have for you, since I've never actually seen the back end of Amazon's ads, I've never been a seller. If I am not currently structuring my ads with this naming convention or even any naming convention, and am I able to go back and edit existing campaigns to have something that's more easily identifiable?
Yes, absolutely. So there is a way inside of Campaign Manager. You can go to the campaign, you can click it, you can do it by campaign. There's something that's a little bit more technical. However, it's phenomenal. It's something I talk about often. It's called bulk files. It's basically a way to manage your account inside of a spreadsheet. And with the new update, Amazon made renaming your campaigns and your ad groups and even portfolios like a bajillion times easier. So this would actually be something that at this point is actually easier to roll out to your entire account if you needed to.
Awesome. Sorry, Rob, go back. What were you going to say?
It's all good. Yeah, no, it's funny how we both jumped on this. We were just like, oh, this is so great.
This is amazing.
Right? If Elizabeth, if you go forward just one more slide. So I'm just kind of curious, like maybe one more, sorry. You had the example where the example was. The other way, other direction. Yeah, there you go. So do you guys also maybe break this down just a smidge more, talking about the very last JR, right? Do you guys maybe do like a JR and then a dash and then somebody's initials or something like that, or possibly, so you know within the team maybe who set this up, or do you already have like account managers assigned to each company, so you know, hey, this person's already assigned to this company, but what if they were out of the office or something, you know, and somebody else made a change? So do you kind of take that one little step further? And I love this, by the way. This is if anybody's listening, if you're not benefiting from this, just this one thing, even right here, you need to go make some changes. And we'd love to hear your comments also. Put some comments if you are or not using a structure like this. But let me know on the question I had regarding the very last.
Yeah, definitely. So the way we structure it is we only ever have like myself and then one other account manager inside of an account, because I believe like I want somebody designated who like understands and learns the account very well. So we don't have like multiple people like launching things. And then if anything is launched, it's because the account manager made that directive and determined that made sense for the account. So we don't at this time put initials. However, if we had like multiple people managing an account, I would 100% recommend doing that.
Perfect. Yeah, if I'll stop you if any more questions come in. Feel free to post those questions down in the comment section. Hit that like and subscribe. All right, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. All right, so let's talk about product grouping. This is a big one, honestly, because this one there's like a lot of pros and cons. So the way it works on Amazon, going back to like your advertising and like how the whole system works, is if you have a listing, and when I'm talking about product grouping, I'm talking about product variations that are variations on a singular listing. I would not recommend this for like multiple listings. You don't want to be grouping listings together. The reason why product variations kind of create this really kind of difficult dynamic inside of the advertising is because that for a singular listing, you get one ad spot and you get one organic spot per search page. So even if you were advertising all of your variations on the same keyword, which sometimes all your variations apply to the same keyword, and that's where you kind of get into this kind of issue, is that for each person typing in search, only one of those products in the ads is eligible to show for that particular search. And so the conundrum then becomes, okay, so how do I group my products? Do I want to advertise all my variations, or how am I going to put these into my account? What's my structure going to be like? So there's different ways of doing that, just the way there was different ways of grouping a campaign, multiple ad groups or one ad group. So what you can do is you can either have like one campaign and one ad group, and then put different variation products inside that main, into the one ad group. You can have one campaign and you can have more than one ad group, and then only paste like one of the different variations in one ad group. Here's your ad group here, and here's your ad group here. Or what you can do is you can split out these, and you can have, all right, one campaign with one ad group and then only one of the variations, and then consequently like same thing. So you can see that there's lots of options here, and then we're still running up against, okay, so only one of these is eligible to show. So even in any of these systems, only one of these products is going to like trigger or like be shown when somebody types in the search. So like, again, pros and cons, what makes sense? So I would say I don't really like this center structure. Again, I think the only benefit to this is for budget. If you have very limited budgets, sometimes this structure is easier to manage, because you can just say, okay, I only have like $20 budget, and I'm just going to throw everything together, and I'm just going to like, cap it with my campaign budget. That can work. The issue with that is that if this structure, you have something that's working very well in this structure, again, there's no way to like scale that particular thing that's working. You have to be fine with scaling the whole thing. And as someone who's seen a lot of different accounts, I've seen people who built out sort of this center structure or one campaign with like a whole bunch of ad groups. And then they're coming to me saying, all right, I'm ready to scale. Like, we want to grow. And I'm like, your current structure, I just can't scale it. I'm going to have to build out something completely new that I'm able to scale. So think long term. If you can get away without doing sort of like a conglomerate structure, I highly recommend it. So then this leaves us these two other options. So one campaign, one ad group, a couple different products in here, or you can do one campaign, one ad group, one product. So I kind of use both. I would say this one I would use for generic keywords. And then when at all possible, potentially instead of doing two products, I would only put one product in here and just do my best seller. And the reason why is if you have a keyword that applies to like all of your different products, and you can only have one of your products show anyways, why not just make sure the one that's showing is going to be your best product? Now, where you can run into issues with only doing like your bestseller is if you're constantly in and out of stock on things. For instance, we deal with several like large clothing brands. For those ones, like size variations, like the best size variation and colors, constantly in and out of stock. So for those reasons, we might group like a couple of the best sellers, because as soon as your product goes out of stock, if that's the only product available in your ads are going to get shut off, and then you got to go add the other product in. It's like a whole thing. So you might as well just group a couple of them. The difference becomes when there are, you have very specific variations. For instance, color. Like maybe you have a pink one and you have a blue one. So I would use this campaign structure. Again, one campaign, one ad group, and then the blue product. And then inside of this ad group, you're only going to put the blue keywords. Again, the philosophy is we're only going to get one visible spot on that search page. If somebody's typing in blue cup, why would we not want to make sure that our blue cup is the one showing? Downside to this is there's no AI. If somebody builds an AI to automate the blue cup keyword needs to be shown on the blue cup product, call me, because I would love to have a really great scalable way for this. At this point, there is not. It is simply good old-fashioned elbow grease, and then determining these keywords apply to this product can be tedious, but it's the best way to build things out. And we've seen the best click-through rates and the best conversion rates this way. Cool. Yeah. So product grouping. So potential drawbacks is it's possible for products to underperform and hurt the performance. So if you have multiple products inside of an ad group, that sometimes like you'll have one that's getting, 50% ACoS with, maybe 10, 15 clicks, and the other one's getting maybe more traffic and the performance is a lot better. At that point, you might just say like, hey, let me just pause this. So the correction would be to continuously analyze the product's performance inside of your ad groups and then just pause poor performers. So that was, yep. So product grouping, use the structure to ensure good product placement. Again, if you're advertising a blue cup, make sure it's showing up where people are searching for a blue cup. Don't make sure, don't have your pink one show up if somebody's searching for a blue cup. As a shopper on Amazon, I can tell you so many times, like I'm typing in white linen shirt and it's giving me all the blue ones. I'm like, I just want a white shirt, people. Like, can we stop showing all the products I have no interest in? So if
it's
you
so frustrating.
Yeah, if you can be the one white shirt on the page where everyone's showing blue, like you're just going to get better performance. Cool.
I love this slide.
Yes.
This is my favorite.
It is true. So match type usage. So we went over, campaign naming, structure. So we're going to go over match types. So if you're unaware, there are 3 different match types available inside of your ad account. We're not going over ACE and targeting or categories, but exact phrase and broad match. So philosophy, some people say like exact match works the best or broad match or vice versa. Like they all have their place in an ad account. So when it comes to like which match types would you use, I just say use all the things, use everything. And so I'm going to say match type usage fallacy. So a lot of people think that crash course on how match type uses, if you use exact match, then it only shows for exactly that term. If you use phrase match, Amazon can insert additional words before or after your particular keyword. So their searches, can be kind of an extension. And then for broad match keywords can, switch up the order of the words as well as insert additional words in between and then to the front and the back. So some people say like, okay, so exact is more specific. Yes, phrase is a little bit less specific and then broad is more specific. So maybe I want to kind of migrate things up to exact match. And I would say that's kind of a fallacy. And the reason being is because while you might have like just your exact match, like your specific search appearing with your exact match keyword, that specific search can also appear in your phrase match and can also appear in your broad match. And so some people say, okay, so then just negative out things and then kind of like force everything to the exact match. And the reason why that doesn't always work great is because oftentimes the performance on this particular, exact match, like that specific term, you'll get the exact same search term showing up in phrase or broad. And then sometimes it performs much better in the other match types. And so if you force everything to exact match, I mean, I don't want to get too much into it because I know I don't want to take up too much time, but I have some horror stories on like trying to force everything into exact match and like it not going all that great, to say the least. And so for that reason, I would just say use all the match types. Now, that being said, I do want to acknowledge the pitfalls. Again, pros and cons, and I think if you know the cons, then you just know how to correct for that. And the potential cons with maybe phrase or broad match, I have these kind of dollar signs to illustrate, like the potential searches that can be triggered under these other match types, it just gets larger. As you can imagine, if there's variations of a particular keyword that can trigger, you're just going to end up with a lot more potential searches. So as you increase a bid, you're increasing a bid on a lot more potential searches. And so phrase and broad match, broad match more so, phrase a little bit less so, just has the potential to exponentially increase spend, and the performance isn't always that great. Like you might have a broad match that just, you're not getting great performance there. So you just want to be aware of that. And that's kind of something I'll cover a little bit in bid management. Now, there are some ad type exceptions when I say like use all the things. Sponsored brands, broad match functions completely differently than it does in sponsored products broad match. Sponsored brands, like for instance, if you did a broad match on running shoe, it has the potential to pull the search term sneaker. As you can imagine, like those are kind of the same, but they're not exactly the same. And I've seen some like wildly irrelevant searches show up in broad match. So it's not like I have a match type that I don't like, but I really don't like broad match and sponsored brand ads. There's something a little bit more advanced called modified broad match if you're really wanting to go hard on broad match and sponsored brand ads. That being said, you'll be perfectly fine just using phrase and exact match in that ad type. Negative keywords. So going over something. So I said that we would cover negative keywords. There is something that a lot of people are unaware of. So you're going to get a fun fact here. So inside of exact match, this applies to keywords. This also applies to negatives as well, which is why it's really, really important, is the exact is not as exact as we might think. Meaning if you have an exact match keyword here, you can actually pull a plural term of something. And also, in addition to that, not only can you pull plurals, but a lot of people don't know if you have an exact match keyword, sometimes you'll trigger a search that has a preposition in it. So for, of, a, and then additionally, which I learned a little while back, it can also elect to like ignore two-letter words. So for instance, if you have keyword Mr. or like MR inside of your keyword, it might just completely eliminate that in the exact match. So just be aware that if you're using a negative exact match, it also has the potential to like block plurals and these other like preposition variations of things. So that sometimes can block how your account performs. So if you've added a negative keyword and then all of a sudden like one of your best performing keywords like stopped working, you might want to go take a look at the negatives you added. And then just a quick recap, negative phrase match, it works very similar to negative phrase. So whatever you've added as the negative, it will block anything containing that particular root word. Hopefully that makes sense. So our philosophy on negative keywords is we only use negative keywords to block irrelevant search terms or significant ad waste. I don't like going through and preemptively adding a whole bunch of negatives because I've seen some things convert at like phenomenal performance that we wouldn't have been able to identify otherwise. So I would say unless you are like obvious waste to the account, or you see something that's like still irrelevant, like for instance, if you're selling an iPhone charger and you keep getting like Android keywords, you're never going to convert for that because an Android user can't even use your product. So you might want to just go through and get rid of that. Hopefully that was clear. I know I'm going pretty fast and there's a lot, but.
Let's see. Somebody I think may have had a comment. I'll put it up on the screen for us. Said Aaron was saying the part about the exact match negative is totally important. So
yes,
nice comment.
Absolutely.
Hi, Aaron. Well, good to see you back on the show. Haven't seen him in a while. So, all right, let's keep going. There's lots of good stuff here.
Cool. All right. So ad types usage, again, use all the things. So I think every single ad type has a place in a well-run account. And so I definitely am a huge fan. The reason being is because you get so many more ad spots on the page. So for instance, this is a search page right here up at the top. You have your sponsored brand ads. Here you have your sponsored product ads. And then here you have your video ad. And then you also, on the listing page over here, you have a sponsored display, you have a sponsored display, and sponsored product ads here. And then fun fact, sometimes you can see sponsored brand ads also show up on product pages. So remember when I said that for one search, you're going to get like one ad spot per product listing. Yes, that is true when you're talking a specific ad type. So for instance, like if you're only running a sponsored product ad on a particular keyword, if somebody searched this and like this search page pop up, you would only get like one of these particular sponsored product spots. That being said, if you are running a sponsored brand ad or a sponsored brands video ad, or if you're running all of the above, then you would have the potential to show here, here, and here, effectively taking 3 spots up on a search page, when technically if you're only running run ad type, you would only be eligible for 1. Same thing here. So if you found someone who you're converting really well in a sponsored product, maybe it makes sense to go through and see if you can get another ad spot in sponsored display. And then maybe somebody doesn't scroll down here to click on this ad, but they'll click it right underneath the buy box. So as you can see, like just kind of maximizing your ad type usage and where you're showing up in the platform significantly increases the shopper eyes on your product. And then if you have a great listing, if you have great call outs, I mean, these ones running a coupon, there are certain ad types that are display coupons. And so you can get better click-throughs. People like your product, they're going to buy. So you just have that much more availability to get those sales. Cool. All right, we're in the home stretch. I talked about bid adjustment philosophy. So I said I'm going to give you a cursory overlook kind of our breakdown and what we use for bid adjustment philosophies. If I was in the weeds, you guys would be here all day. But our philosophy is all keywords are not created equal. There are some keywords that are more statistically significant to how your product performs. And I really believe it makes sense to prioritize these. So I actually have, I think one of the other podcasts I was on or something, we were talking about it. And I was just saying, a lot of times what people will do is they'll go into account and they'll say, oh, I need to optimize my bits. Like I have a target of 30%, everything above 30%, great, I need to cut the bits. And then the next day they go in and like their ad sales decrease and then their total sales are decreasing. And they're like, what in the world is going on? Because, you know, I'm optimizing for my 30%. And oftentimes what is overlooked is that there are some keywords that's driving a significant portion of the sales and then also helping you sustain your organic rankings on the platform. And if you cut those ones off more significantly, then you cut off that, you know, a much larger portion of your total sales. And so this is definitely something I believe we should all take into account when going through and optimizing. So how to prioritize, these are the things that I look at. I look at high conversion rates, I look at high sales volume, and I also look at things that are helping us maintain ranking. So when I say maintain ranking, it's really just tracking where your ranking is in relation to a specific keyword. There's no like magic bullet of, you know, kind of correlation of the ads with that. You just need to kind of look at where your products are ranking. All right, cool. And then these are kind of the performance buckets that we have things fall into. So I would say there's high ACoS, there's low ACoS, there's low or no impressions, or there's clicks with no sales. And I think these are like very common buckets that everyone has things fall into. Like, okay, is it above my target ACoS? Is it below my target ACoS? Am I not getting impressions on it? Do I need to bump up my bids? And have I gotten enough impressions and clicks, but I'm not making any sales off of it, so therefore I probably need to do some adjustments on it. And this is exactly kind of very similar to what we use internally. However, we create additional performance buckets within the performance buckets. And this is how I would navigate. So when I said like things are more significant, it's like, okay, so this is high ACoS, but this one is driving like significant portion of my sales. And yes, I need to probably optimize to something that's more profitable, but I don't want to lose as many sales in the long run. So if I chop my bid in half and I go from showing on the first page to all the way showing on page 3, well, then I'm significantly reducing my visibility and also my sales, because if nobody can find me, nobody's going to buy. So maybe instead of paying $1.50 a click, maybe I'll see if I can pay $1.45 a click, $1.40 a click, and maybe show up a little bit lower on the page, but then I should at least maintain some visibility. So ideally, I don't lose too many sales. And this is not a super exact science. It is a test, observe, optimize again. But if you can just kind of, most of these things have been through me doing, or the entire team, like a lot of trial and error, going through and doing that, 30% ACoS optimization and recognizing like, oh my goodness, that was not what I wanted to happen. And then going through and trying to troubleshoot why that happened and then making adjustments for that. So that's what I've come up with is performance buckets and treating not everything equally, doing some things, but doing them more incrementally versus, if I have a keyword that I'm only generating one sale within 30 days and it's not at my performance targets, if I lose one sale within a 30-day period, it's probably not statistically significant enough for me to care. So at that point, maybe I'm going more for profitability. Cool. I will say when it comes to, and here's another thing, that I've gone through the cycles, and I know that there are certain things that I need to correct for. So when I said on this particular slide, looking at things with high conversion rate, high sales, and things that are helping me sustain my ranking, I do want to kind of correct for these particular match types. So anything in broad match category, automatic targeting, or anything that I specifically have a low bid strategy on. Because oftentimes for broad match categories and automatic targeting, if you're only looking at the things that are driving a higher portion of sales, like we went over in kind of the match types, how broad match has the ability to just generate a whole bunch of different searches, you have much more potential to generate sales because you're on a whole bunch more searches. And so just naturally, these targeting types will bring in a large volume of sales. So if you're only looking at things that have a large volume of sales relative to the account, you're going to naturally favor broad categories, autos. And so you just want to be aware of that. So again, it might not be that you don't want to bring them down more gradually, but I wouldn't go through and like significantly increase bids on these things because we just want to correct for the fact that, again, you can trigger a whole bunch of additional searches that don't perform as well. So it's much harder to like scale these targeting types. Hopefully that makes sense. Cool. All right, so now we're going to gain context on pretty much like everything I talked about. So I went through like ad format, the product, search page, and ad spots. So what we're actually trying to do through the ads is we're trying to gain visibility, which should drive traffic to the listing, and then that traffic should convert. And the variables on that are the ad format. So where on the page are we showing up? You know, are we showing up in a sponsored brand? Do you have a sponsored product? You know, maybe it's a little bit lower down the page. Maybe we have a sponsored brand video. The product that shows up. So for instance, if we have a blue backpack, are we showing our blue backpack? And then which search page am I showing up? And then what ad spot am I getting? So these are the variables that we're looking to do. And then these are the levers that we can pull to kind of influence these variables. So again, ad format, ad type. Like what ad type are we advertising on? The product. So what product are we advertising in that ad type? Again, if we're looking at blue backpack, we want to show our blue backpack. So therefore we put the blue backpack in our ads. Makes sense. The search page, where we're showing up. So this is your keyword plus your match type. So for instance, if we were only advertising in blue backpack and maybe we only have it in exact match, but maybe somebody wanted blue outdoor backpack. Well, if we had that keyword in a broad match, we would show up there. That would trigger. So we would trigger that particular search page. If we were looking for large blue backpack, if we had an exact match, that's not going to trigger, but phrase match, it will trigger. So again, which search page we're showing up on, keyword plus match type helps us control that variable. And then the ad spot, basically where we're showing up on the page, the main lever for that is our bid. So you can see like kind of how we went through, okay, these are the ad types we recommend. Here's the product performance we recommend. Here's the keywords, here's the match types we use, here's how we adjust our bids. The whole purpose is to give you a better control and a better way to understand how you can influence those ad levers. So the goal is to balance high control without fighting against Amazon's system behavior. So you kind of got to work within the system we got and then find the best way to maximize it. And I do believe that is the end of the presentation.
Fantastic. Nice. We did have a question come in also from Aaron. It's kind of long. We'll pop it on the screen. I don't know if it'll show the full thing. Oh, it does. Okay. Yeah. So what do you do to determine if you are running too many ads and they are potentially killing organic sales? For example, having one placement for SD, top of page, SP, top or mid of page, and SB video. This and an organic placement gives you more of a sponsored ad purchase than organic. I think I read that correctly.
Yes. So I would say look at tacos and look at ad sale percentage. So tacos is your ad spend divided by your total sales. So this gives you context on how your ads are relating to the total sales in your account, like what percentage of your total sales did you have to spend to gain those. And then the other thing you can look at is what I call ad sale percentage, which is your ad sales divided by your total sales. And then that will give you the ratios of like, again, what percentage of your total sales is going to the ads. And these are all like lagging measures. So like you have to test and then you see how those ones go. So if you're seeing like rise in total ACoS and rise in ad sale percentage, like something's not working. Because again, if you have a larger percentage of total of your organic versus your ad sales, you know, your organic is ranking really well. And if you have a lower total ACoS, means you have some organic ranking and you're not paying like a very high percentage of your total sales on your ads. So as long as you can keep a pulse on those, you should be good.
Thank you so
Very
much.
cool.
So Aaron, hope that helps. Let us know in the comments if you're still watching us live, if that did.
Yeah. Cool. So let's also have Elizabeth just kind of tell everybody real quickly about Junglr, what you guys do, how to get a hold of you. And that way, if there is any follow-up questions or anybody's watching this after the video's gone live and it's in, let's call it repeat on YouTube, they can reach out to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we are an Amazon advertising agency. So if you need help, full service. So if you need help running your ads, like totally help out with that. The best way to get a hold of us for that is the website, which is Junglr, junglr.com. And then if you just want to snoop on what I'm talking about, I put out the most content on LinkedIn. So you can feel free to follow me there too.
Excellent. Excellent.
Amazing.
Yeah. Some good content there. So I do have it up on the screen, and if it's junglr.com, junglr.com. Yep. Elizabeth, always great having you on. Such amazing content. And I think Lisa and I, even though I really never did PPC, at least on Amazon, I did some Google PPC stuff, but I think we still learned some other stuff just to apply to what we do. That's not even technically related to PPC. So that was great content.
100%. And I have to ask, so since this is your internal presentation, we're now honorary Junglr employees, right? Like we're getting a welcome kit in the mail. Awesome.
Hopefully we don't have to pass a test. So. All right.
Just an interview process.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We really appreciate it. And thank you, Elizabeth. And again, reach out to junglr.com, Junglr. If you have any comments or want to find out more information about the company. And of course, if you need PPC services, definitely one of the people I recommend all the time. So thanks, everybody. And we do have a bunch of back-to-back podcasts because I am going on the road soon. And so is Lisa. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And we'll see you soon. Take care.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Sellernomics podcast. Special thanks to our sponsor, GETIDA. Did you know that Amazon probably owes you money for FBA reimbursements? Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics. Be sure to join us again next week for more great tips on how to grow your business. And thanks again for listening.